Thank you.
Gentlelady yields. Gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Steil, who is also the chair of the Subcommittee on Digital Assets, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for holding today's hearing. Mr. Begg, thanks for being here. I want to talk to you about the waste, fraud, and abuse that's occurring in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. As you may know, $2.8 million in rental assistance funds went to other purposes, went to payroll, to oversight, to administrators, not to helping people in the city of Milwaukee get housing, many of whom are challenged. We face national challenges with housing right now. But I want to talk about what went on. We have a new CFO at the Milwaukee Housing Authority who I know is engaged in this and trying to get this back on track. But what are the consequences for individuals who caused the problem? And what is the consequences across the board at HUD? Are people arrested? Are there charges made? What are the penalties? And how did this occur for years in the city of Milwaukee before this came to light?
Welcome back, Patriots, to another episode of Right View Nation, the home of truth, accountability, and unapologetic American values. I'm your host, and today we've got a jaw-dropping hearing to talk about. We're diving into a story that will have every hardworking American fuming, especially if you care about where your tax dollars are going. Let me break it down for you.
Well, thank you for the question. We're acutely aware of the scenario in Milwaukee. It's one we've been tracking, and it's one that we've considered doing our own oversight over, and quite frankly, it's a crowded room there. There are many, many people looking at this issue now based on the status. But in terms of penalties, if employees of a housing authority are found to have misused federal funding, we would investigate those potential crimes and refer them for prosecution. We would work with HUD's Office of General Counsel to seek to debar them from federal programs, and we would seek any other potential administrative penalties for others involved in the actions.
I appreciate you engaging on this and being serious. I think the new administration, the Trump-appointed administration at HUD, we have a big opportunity to get to the bottom of the waste, fraud, and abuse, because what we want to do is actually help people who are challenged and need the assistance. What we don't want to see is it going into programs that it's not designed for. But walk me through how no penalties came to be over the course of 3 years, in particular as it relates to the $2.8 million in misused funds, the Milwaukee Housing Authority.
Well, if you're referring to penalties from HUD, I can't speak to their specific decision-making, but they do have penalties and remedies available to them, which can include limiting and withholding assistance to housing authorities.
And at what point does HUD apply those penalties?
That's a discretionary function for the program offices to decide. It's a policy call for them ultimately. In many instances, they will try to work with housing authorities to get out of troubled or difficult situations where things aren't going correctly before going to the penalties. Because I mentioned earlier, there aren't a lot of non-federal funds available from housing authorities to pay penalties. So if you withhold new funding from them,
we enter a catch-22 once there's a bad problem, which kind of brings the question of how problems like this stem and grow over a period of years before they're caught. Is there an unwillingness, do you think, in some housing authorities to correct bad behavior?
I wouldn't say that. What I would say is that many housing authorities are facing the same capacity challenges that HUD and its staff are facing. They frequently don't have adequate systems in place. They might not have processes in place necessary to run efficiently and effectively, and they have a large charge, and frequently it's one that's difficult for them to manage, so the problems snowball over time.
But it seems to me, at least, that HUD appears asleep at the wheel while this is ongoing in the city of Milwaukee, that this isn't being covered and held accountable, because you're exactly right. The longer it takes for this to come to light, these penalties are simply pulling money back from a system that doesn't have it because the money was swindled in the first place, which puts us in a catch-22 and shows the need to investigate this and hold people accountable in the first place. Let me go big picture, because I think one of the questions is, are the people who are engaged in this inappropriate behavior nervous of being caught? How often is HUD applying penalties? Is HUD arresting people, making charges across the board of housing authorities across the United States when they see this type of waste, fraud, and abuse?
Well, what I can tell you is our office is responsible for doing the criminal investigations, and almost half of our portfolio is dedicated to public corruption in these programs.
But how often are people actually held accountable?
We could point to investigative case outcomes, prosecutions, sentencing weekly. It happens all the time, and in many ways, we're only scratching the tip of the iceberg.
That's my concern, is we're only scratching the tip of the iceberg, your words. That's my concern, is that we're not taking this seriously enough to root out the waste, fraud, and abuse, because every dollar that is wasted inside HUD is a dollar that's not going to improving the housing or providing access to individuals who do need housing. Appreciate the work you're doing at HUD and others to root out this waste, fraud, and abuse. Mr. Chairman, thank you for holding the hearing. I yield back.
Congressman Bryan Steil from Wisconsin, and a true patriot, just took HUD to the woodshed. And rightfully so. What he exposed is something we all should be deeply concerned about. We're talking about $2.8 million in rental assistance funds gone, not to the people in Milwaukee who needed help, not to struggling families, but to administrators, payroll, oversight, basically everything but housing. Let me ask you something, folks. When you pay your taxes, when you work overtime to make ends meet, is it so your government can hand that money over to bureaucrats with no accountability? Or is it to help Americans who actually need it? This is corruption. This is incompetence. And this is exactly what happens when you have bloated federal agencies like HUD running wild without proper oversight. Now, what really grinds my gears is that this wasn't some one-off mistake. This wasn't just a typo on a spreadsheet. This abuse of taxpayer dollars went on for years. Years! And guess what the penalties were? Nothing, nada, zilch, nobody fired, nobody arrested, no handcuffs, no perp walks, just business as usual in Biden's bureaucratic swamp. Congressman Steil asked the right questions. Where are the consequences? Who's being held accountable? How did this happen for so long? And the answer from the HUD witness, well, we're tracking it. We're considering oversight. It's discretionary. We like to work with the housing authorities instead of punishing them. Excuse me? Let's call this what it is, a complete failure of leadership. Patriots, if there was ever a case of a government agency being asleep at the wheel, this is it. Actually, no, they weren't asleep. They just didn't care. Because when it's not their money, what incentive do they have to protect it? We've got people in this country struggling to keep a roof over their heads. Veterans, single moms, working-class families, they're scraping by. And meanwhile, HUD is letting millions of dollars evaporate into some bureaucratic black hole. This is not just about Milwaukee. This is happening across the country. And Steil is right. We're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. This is why we need patriots in Congress who aren't afraid to demand answers and shine a light on this nonsense. People like Steil who aren't playing political games, who don't care about hurting feelings. They care about results, about protecting your money. Because every dollar wasted at HUD is a dollar not going to a homeless veteran, a dollar not going to fix public housing for a struggling family, a dollar not going to improve lives, but instead it's lining the pockets of inefficient, bloated, self-serving government insiders. This is why we fight for limited government. Because when government gets too big, too bloated, and too disconnected from the people, this is what you get: fraud, waste, abuse, and zero accountability. We don't need more regulations. We don't need more departments. We need real leadership. We need to drain the bureaucratic swamp, not just in D.C., but in every agency across America. And it's time to start naming names and cutting budgets. If HUD can't keep track of our money, then maybe HUD shouldn't have it in the first place. Enough is enough. My fellow Americans, don't let this story disappear into the media memory hole. Share it, talk about it, hold your elected officials accountable, and most of all, vote for the ones who aren't afraid to take on the system. This is Right View Nation, where we stand for truth, for freedom, and for the American taxpayer. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and as always, stay free, stay strong, and God bless the United States of America.